Hello, hi, thank you. I'm David Yu, assistant professor at the University with joint appointments in civil engineering and political science. And today's presentation is based on work that my PhD student is leading, and this student is actually from Korea University, the department of this department. So thank you for sending me this wonderful student. So this is a picture of what happened in Houston, Texas, during Hurricane Harvey. And as you can see, in just 4 days, 40 inches of rain poured down in this area, and as a result, the first level of most homes were submerged underwater. So most people were kind of evacuated to the second floor, and they were many of them were trapped. And I was at the time I was in the U.S. and I stayed in Indiana for universities. So although Indiana is about 1,000 miles away from Houston, I had this very unique experience of experiencing this disaster at a very personal level, because I have a friend who lives in Houston, and she posted this message. And I saw this in real time, although I was in Indiana. So she said, "Hi, does anyone have a truck or something that can get to Gracewood?" And I think that's some neighborhood in Houston. In academia, my grandmother is stuck there, and the water is rising in her home. So I saw this Facebook message in real time. So I could sense this event in a personal level in real time. And some hours later, she posted this message, and to make a long story short, you can just read this sentences with red underlined. So she said, "Too many miracles. Two young neighbors came. They swam and pushed and pulled my grandmother in a boat for hours through waters colder than day." Right? And then bottom paragraph, she says, "Thank you for pouring out your care and support from all over the world." So this was a very interesting experience to me. It happened in Houston, but it was remarkable in two ways. People help each other, right? Neighbors helping neighbors, although it was very risky. And also the second interesting thing was that this news, what's going on in Houston, was like shared by people all over the world, Indiana, somewhere in Asia. Right? So this brings me to today's topic and the central issue of disaster management. Okay? So the central issue is how to cater to the needs, humanitarian needs of disaster-affected people, especially in this age where the impact of disasters are getting more and more severe due to increasing hazard frequency, hazard magnitude, and urbanization, increasing exposure of many people to such hazards. So this problem is becoming more and more how to cater to the needs of people. And typically, this is how we deal with this event. Public agencies, government agencies, follow a centralized model. They collect donated goods, and they also gather this national guards who live in other regions. So they all come to this affected area and help. So it's a centralized model. But the problem is, this is centralized model. So the bad thing is it takes time. It takes time to move the goods and staff to the place of the need. So the question is, what happens if people are isolated, but if delays occur or there's insufficient amount of help to this disaster-affected people during initial few days of disaster? Right? This is a critical issue, and so this makes me to make connections to resilience concept. General resilience of a community to extreme events. So general resilience is about being able to cope with all kinds of shocks, known, unknown, unknowable shocks in all ways, right? How can you build general resilience of a community to such extreme events? And one strong indicator of that is how communities can deal with such events when they're isolated, and how they can endogenously solve such issue. So what do we know about human behavior during disaster situations? This is human behavior. So we know this. From many case studies all over the world, we know that there is an emergence of local health network. That is, neighbors voluntarily help their neighbors with food, water, supplies, clean up labor, etc. And if you look at Hurricane Harvey, Haiti earthquake, these things really do happen. Okay? And the interesting thing from social science or political science perspective is this is mystery because people help others, although this is costly and risky to themselves. This is very cooperative and altruistic behavior, and from a standard economics point of view, this is a remarkable thing. But the challenge is this is not scalable, right? So it's usually neighbors helping neighbors. So it's very hard for people who live in, let's say in this area to go and help people who live in 20 or 30 minutes away. So it's localized, it's not scalable. And usually this kind of effort suffers from myopic view due to lack of information about requirement and availability of different resources at different locations. So the bottom line is there is this barrier to local health network because of low information level. Because there is lack of information, this local health network is limited in their capacity. What's another observed pattern? Another pattern that became more prominent in the recent years is emergence of reliance on social media. So these days everyone uses their smartphones, mobile devices, and they all use Facebook, Twitter, right? All of this. So increasingly, social media like Twitter and Facebook are increasingly used to identify and match help seekers and help donors. So if you look at the Facebook image, somebody posts a message, these people need these things, please help, right? So these things are posted, relayed, and spread all over the internet. So this is becoming more and more prominent phenomenon. And why is this becoming prominent? Because use of social media can enhance the information level about relief help. Right? And in doing so, it can reduce information costs for identifying and matching health seekers and health donors. So it reduces the information cost. And it can also scale up the level of cooperation from immediate neighbors to much wider geographic and social network scales. So much so that one couple of researchers stated this year. Hurricane Harvey is the first event in the history of modern human history that call for help through social media surpassed call for help through 911 call. So this is like these people made that bold statement, right? So rather than calling 911, people now post more messages on social media. So things are changing. So this brings me to this significant policy question, policy interest. Can we enhance community disaster resilience without increasing the absolute amount of relief help, just by increasing the level of information, but relief chances? Right? So that's the $1 billion question. Can we enhance disaster resilience just by increasing information level without getting extra goods and people from outside, right? And so there's lots of initiatives these days. Lots of governments spend money to develop some kind of a situational awareness platform to share news about disaster things. So lots of initiatives are underway. So is it sufficient to just encourage more use of social media? It's not a simple question. It's not as straightforward as it seems, because there is a trade-off. Although information level can be enhanced by social media, the thing is, greater the physical and social distance between health seekers and donors, there can be less trust and more travel cost. So among neighbors helping each other, it's harder to identify who can help me, but there's more willingness to help, right? Because it's close neighbors. But with social media, the trade-off is it's much easier to identify who can help me. But the trade-off is it's the probability of this person actually helping me and coming over to help me is relatively less compared to local interactions. So because of this, it's not a simple question. So the research puzzle or question that I have is this: will increased use of social media lead to greater sharing of relief goods among people in aggregate level? We don't know, right? And can this happen even under the strict assumption of this trade-off relationship? Okay? So that's my first research question. The second puzzle is this: people often decide to seek help or donate help by comparing themselves to their neighbors, to people who are nearby, right? That is, people have different thresholds for becoming help seekers or help donors. And these thresholds can be heterogeneous, not uniform. So in this figure on the left, this person in the center only has two relief goods, but it can sense itself as a potential donor because all of his neighbors are really have little resources, right? This is like probably what happens in Haiti, some developing countries. But if you look at the picture on the right, that person may seek for help because all of his neighbors have more than he does, right? Although he has enough. So this difference in thresholds, we don't know what effects this can have on aggregate level. So the second question is, can the awareness of this overall relief situation, this global threshold for seeking or giving help, improve the overall performance of social mediated help? We don't know. Third puzzle is contextual conditions do matter. Okay? Communities can be different in terms of their social capital or how willing people are to help each other, right? And level of mobility obstruction can vary also depending upon the severity and type of disasters. Right? Also type of relief goods or help that people may need can vary. In places like Haiti, maybe if you just give them food and water, that's sufficient. Places in like Houston, people may need more different types of goods, right? So how does all these contextual conditions affect outcome? That's the third research question. So what do we have here? This is what we have. What we're dealing here is a complex adaptive system. Right? We have tens of thousands of people interacting. Yet the aggregate outcome is not easy to predict just by looking at individual parts. Right? And so empirical research is limited in this kind of problem. So how do we tackle this problem? Right? We do modeling, and there are different types of modeling, but we can do something called exploratory modeling. And exploratory modeling works by this. You explore aggregate patterns that emerge from numerous interactions of individuals in the help network. In return, the rules that individuals use to interact with each other are based on empirical patterns and status patterns. Yeah. So with my graduate student, I developed an Asian-based model that captures essential features of these interactions. It looks like this. This is the net local platform. And the goal is gain critical insights by studying this generalized model. The goal is not for prediction or to create a most realistic model. The goal is to gain insights using this generalized model. So I will very quickly go through the approach. So it's N by N, that is structure, situation, people are isolated, mobility is obstructed, and their interaction is based on some simple interaction. People are heterogeneous in resources they have. People are different in behavior. Some people seek help, some people donate help. They can use local interaction to help each other, or they can use social media to help each other. They have different thresholds for becoming help seeker or donor. They can use local awareness, just compared to their neighbors, or they may have global awareness. they can know the full situation. So I'll just skip this. So the result is this. The first question. So the question is: will increased use of social media lead to greater sharing of relief goods among people in aggregate level? And through simulation, we found that yes, we used some strong assumptions. We equalize the probability of getting help through local interaction or social media. We equalize this to make sure it's comparable. And the result is that yes, social media use increase. There are much relief sharing going on. Same thing here. So I was able to quantitatively, although this is simulation, show that social media can indeed lead to more sharing of relief goods during disaster. Even under this assumption, whether people interact with neighbors or through social media, the probability of getting help is equal. So we introduced this assumption to compare results on an equal basis. So can awareness of overall relief situation improve the performance of social media aided help? Yes. When people are aware of global situation, the performance of social media aided network increased substantially. Right. So this green curve is when people do not use social media, and they only use local awareness, but with increased awareness of global situation, much more sharing happened. Same story. Gaining understanding of global situation can create synergistic effect with use of social media. I think I'll skip the results. So in here, more relief goods are required. There's stronger effect of social media. So takeaway points are this: disaster impact is growing in scale, right? Both due to increases in severity of hazards, also because of urbanization, we have more people who are exposed. The question is, what happens if government aid is delayed or insufficient during critical initial few days? How can communities develop general resilience? That's the question. And through simulation, I was able to quantitatively assess that increased use of social media can indeed increase level of sharing, thus community resilience. But that's not sufficient. Just by increasing use of social media is not sufficient. The critical insight is that overall awareness of the situation is needed to reach full potential of social media use. And contextual conditions do matter. Okay, so that's, sorry about delay, but that's all I have. And this is still research in progress. It's not published yet, so but the model is kind of completed, and we plan to submit to the journal early next year.
Okay, thank you for giving a nice presentation, and I'm sorry for not giving you such time. We are really running short of time, but I think we can have one or two questions from the floor.
Thank you for the very interesting presentation, and also it's very interesting to see that social media really helped that to the total relief sharing. But the question is, from the landscape architect's point of view, I'm working as a designer, so how do you think this kind of finding can contribute to designing the space? And also, what's the kind of consequence after we use already maximize this usage of the social media and then the disaster, and then what's the happening in the environment as well?
Well, from strictly green infrastructure sense, I think having this rain collecting streams or ponds everywhere in the neighborhood, small ditches, they can of course reduce the level of water height when this flooding does happen. But the question, I think, more interesting question is how landscape can affect information level. How it can maybe amplify effect of social media. That's I have to think. That's a very interesting question. If somehow people can better observe each other, there's an open space, maybe local interaction can occur more frequently because they can directly observe each other. Whereas if people live in like areas where they cannot really see their neighbors, maybe it's harder. Maybe also depending upon whether people live in single attached homes or like apartments. I think that can also affect how the effectiveness of local interaction. Maybe like in people who live in apartments, social media is not gonna. It's gonna play a smaller role because in apartments people can really help each other because they live in a space where they're so close to each other and they can. So I think physical conditions do matter. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. I found the topic is very interesting. What I found was that the approach is based on the assumption that everyone is using social media. And I think that comes with some equity issues. For example, the use of social media can depend on class, gender, or age. So how you are going to deal with these kind of issues?
So that's not the assumption. So here, as you can see, I vary percentage of social media users from 0% to 100%. So,
okay.
So I don't assume that. I don't assume that everyone's using social media. Also, I don't assume that everyone helps like others. It's probabilistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yes.
The follow Q&A can be done on the floor. Thank you for your presentation. Let's give him a big hand.